go ahead and get started this evening. We'll begin with roll call.
Okay, Rob Keller.
Here.
Tim Mills.
Here.
Sue Wilson.
Here.
Donna Kramer.
Here.
Jim Metzger.
Here.
Mac Rankin.
Here.
Brian Whirling.
Here.
You're all here.
Awesome. Next, we'll go to the good news with Mr. Sadoff.
Yep, just a few things in this time. A few different pictures. You have some 8th grade Team Pride Awards, kind of quarterly awards they do, recognizing different positive traits in students. I have a list of honor band participants that Skiva Honor Band was recently. I put in a little note from Twitter about a successful wrestling tournament at Newton, and then just a picture and a note on our dance team that earned 3 Division I ratings.
All right. Are there any board reports from anyone?
I think is this where I'm supposed to talk?
Yeah, if you'd like to, you can. Yeah.
On the curriculum? Should we wait?
Oh, let's wait for the curriculum committee.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more if a board member has any related board business to report, but our standing committees, like we have some ad hoc committees that don't meet regularly, but maybe we'll meet on safety, or Sue's been involved with wellness efforts. That'd be the time somebody spoke, but our regular board curriculum we'll do later.
I could probably use this time to talk about my visits to the middle school and high school. Thursday I spent time at the middle school. Thanks for the warm welcome, guys. It was great. I got to get through all the classrooms and really appreciate everything you guys are doing. And likewise at the high school, was there today for a while, and really exciting to get into the classroom, see what the teachers are doing with the students, and be able to connect with them. So thanks for all of your hard work.
Any other board members? Thanks, Mac. Next is the consent agenda. That out-of-state trip, will they have problems with the new Iowa law, or since it's in another state, it should be fine as far as finding a hotel?
Oh, that's an Iowa law, I think.
Just for Iowa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, the law that Rob's referring to is in Iowa as of January 1st. If you're going to use public funds for lodging, that hotel needs to have gone through a certification process regarding trafficking. So
And there's only a few.
there's
hotels that have done
15 hotels in Iowa about right now have gone through that. So, yeah.
Maybe on top of things. There, Rob.
I no.
He reads his board report, his weekly board updates.
That's right.
Good job, Rob. Way to make us look good. There you go.
All right. Sorry. Anyway, anyone.
So I moved to the consent agenda.
Thanks, Donna.
I'll second.
Thanks for taking the pressure off me. Motion made by Donna to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Sue. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next are delegate. Oh, sorry, I skipped that. Delegations, petitions. Anybody here to speak this evening?
Yep, we have Carrie Gabriel here. And would you go to the mic if you don't mind, Carrie, then we'll...
My speech here because there's going to be some stuff that I probably can't get to because it's time.
All right.
Take one, pass it. Hi, my name is Carrie Gabriel. I've been an associate for over 6 years. I stayed with the school because it's where my children go, and I am more likely to know what they are doing and what they need to do to keep up with their grades. Once my children graduate, I'm not sure I'm going to be sticking with the associate position within the district. I feel the reason the system is not working for the associates is because there are no benefits. What I mean by that, there is no full-time positions to get benefits. The hourly rate is less than what students make at such places as Walmart and McDonald's. My son, he makes more than me in a month working at Dairy Queen for 27 hours a week. Just to make ends meet, I try to work all the games put on by the activities department, plus I have a second job. If anything were to happen to my husband, this job would not benefit me in any way. As you can tell, this job cannot be filled because there is no line to get into this position at the schools anymore. COVID-19 has impacted this position and many others in the district. But being in the thick of things, I see the impact more harshly on the education department of this district. In the last two employees that they hired for the associate position in the high school, they got sick and were out for a week, and they never came back. The associates that are working are strung so thin that they are barely making it through the day without having some sort of a breakdown. At our meetings the day before school started, we were told that they will be monitoring us and watching us when we're on our phones. This kind of made me feel defeated. I understand not wanting us to play games. I don't have any games on my phone. But this is how we communicate with our IEP teachers, how we access our emails, how we communicate with each other about the students we share. You did give us 3 Chromebooks to share, one being in the level 3, one in the level 2, and one in the level 1. There used to be an issue of having 6 associates having to try to share those, at least 2. Now you see where we're hurting at the high school. Like I said, we have 4 associates and used to have a program associate taking care of over 75 special ed kids. Most of these kids, since they are not on Medicaid or have the associate minutes where we can bill for them, they do not get covered unless one of them happens to have the same class as the one that is covered. Also, it would be nice to be invited to the meetings they have every week, PLC meetings, even if it's just once a month. We never have associate meetings to let out our frustration, to hit up ways to get guidance on what to do and what we see with the students that we are in care of. As an associate, we feel like we are on the outside of every decision made and that our opinion doesn't matter. They even took away our monitoring sheets of behavior students because it's now all digital and the teachers are to do it. This bothers me because teachers are trying to take care of 15 to 20 kids in a classroom and cannot keep all eyes on the ones that need the sheets filled out. They do not see the interactions I have with them. They don't see how many times I prompt them, say, hey, get off your computer, get off the game. It doesn't work. On a personal note, I have a son who is a senior this year, and he has an IEP. And he has to be pulled for tests and allotted extra time. This has not been happening this year because we are so short-staffed in the associates and in the special ed teachers. Do not have time because they're either co-labbing classes or have classes of their own. What irks me is he's failing economics and animal science. If the class is loud and chaotic, he has a hard time staying on task. He's autistic, and he has a hard time concentrating and remembering to do his work. Because of the shortage and the lack of really trying to find help for the students, we do not have billable minutes for. He is just slid under the rug, in my opinion. So I'm not blaming his failure on him. I really can't blame it on the teachers either. I'm blaming it on the school administration and the lack of care that they're giving him and other kids like him. Especially since I have to work another job to be able to afford where we live. I'm not at home to help him with homework. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. And when I'm off, I'm like you. I want to get my grocery shopping done, laundry, get my house clean. I don't have time to sit down and make sure he has all of his homework done. I really depend on the teachers at the school. And when they're failing that part, it bothers me so much. So we are very dependent on the school and the teachers to be able to help him. And in my heart and eyes, we are failing the special ed kids drastically. Right now I'm working full-time hours. I work from 7:30 a.m. till 3:10 p.m. and until 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. This is because we are so short-staffed. And I was told that my hours are going to go back to 7:30 to 2 and 1:30 on Wednesdays when they find the help we need. Since June, I have not seen a posting for the high school to hire associates. Here recently it has come to my attention that we have a few openings. When we bring this up, they say they are out there, just no one is applying. If this is true, when they hired Stephanie Phipps, why did she have to go to the principal of the school to get an application so we could hire her? In all actuality, we could use about 4 more associates, to be honest, or maybe 3 part-time, make 2 of the associates that are there full-time with benefits. On a daily basis, we associates help students with what we got. If they have to work on their computer, then we have to slide up next to them and help them this way. With COVID-19, this is a risk. But it's also a risk for any illness. We are also to try to coach behavioral students to get off their computer and listen to instruction. This is almost an impossible task due to not having a way to land school them ourselves. We have to track down their IEP teacher to land school them. This only works if they're in the same part of the building that we are. I know this has been said to you many times, but until you work with these students on a daily basis, you do not realize the handicap of not having a computer and the systems in place to be able to help your student and yourself.
Thank you. It's past the time.
Okay.
Thank you for typing it all out. So I'd encourage all the board members to read the rest of it since if she wasn't able to get through it all in the time allotted. So thank you for taking the time and thanks for coming in and taking the time to speak to us. Anyone else? Art?
No, that's all that signed up.
Thanks. Next. Next is our presentation.
Mrs. Ellis.
Ellis first.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Ellis, and I am the middle school principal. And one of the changes that we have worked on is a little time in our period. We used to be called read time, now it's called win, and it stands for whatever I need. There has been some changes that has taken place lately. So who's my cue guy here? All right, so it is our intervention time. And with the intervention time, each grade level has different levels for math and reading. That is one of the differences that has taken place in the last couple of years because we now are monitoring our students in math as well as reading. So when they take the FAST bridge test and the FAST test, they get how well they do on that test. They actually will get put in some type of intervention level, or they go into what we call SSR/ALEX. SSR is like silent sustained reading, and then ALEX is a diagnostic math program that is aligned with the new curriculum that we have where they can work on math problems that actually work at their level. Well, also during this time that we have started doing is doing some enrichment activities, and I think you can go on with this now. So one of them is STEM, and STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And we have different opportunities for the kids. One of the opportunities is to take robotics. So we have these little robotic guys which they can code. And with the robotics, the kids are allowed, last year we kind of messed with it a little bit, got to know the little robots, and actually he's a little sassy guy. I had one in my office for a while, and he one time told me I was very boring, and he was ready to play, and I'm like, I turned him off. It was kind of weird. So he's a little sassy. But we have about 15 of these little robots, and now these robots are following paths in a classroom. They're lifting up things. They are shooting little objects. They do some coloring of items that the students program these robots to kind of do all these things. So it's pretty cool. We also have coding for girls, and this is through the Iowa Department of Education. They have a program there that is trying to encourage girls to do computer science, and so we do that. And then we had our librarian that says that she would just like to do coding, and so now we have an opportunity for boys and girls to do coding in that. Mr. Dubchak is doing website design during that time as well, but now he's kind of going more over to the fine arts where he's going to be doing some screenwriting. So, and that's with this one. This was a grant, or I guess it was a grant, so Title IV, a funding, but they kind of targeted the fine arts / community piece. And so I asked my teachers if there's anything that they'd be willing to do, and I had several stepped up and said, yeah, we'd love to do some things during that time versus doing the silent sustained reading and math. One of the things that they have to do is they still have to try to throw math into it, and they still have to throw reading into it. So the 6th grade art, they are doing that right now, and they are creating little art projects and letters and writing they did some things for the veterans on Veterans Day. They're doing some projects, I think now for the nursing homes, things like that. But in with that, they do have to do some reading and math with that. Next semester, we were just going to do 8th grade art because our advanced math courses, our advanced art classes are so full. But it's kind of going down a little bit. So they talked about doing an 8th grade, 6th grade art mentoring because the 6th grade do not want to leave. We have a whole bunch of 6th graders that want to be in this art wing club. So we're looking at the 6th grade that have already had it. They will probably not be able to do it because we have a line of kids wanting in there. And so working with those 8th grade kids to be mentors and working on some of their art skills and things like that. And so it'll be just for those kids that really, art is a passion. Mr. Dubchek now is doing screenwriting. We are going to do a musical, and I think it's Dr. Seussical. So that'll be kind of fun. And they're going to be doing a production for I don't know who, and it might be just for other wing classes, or they might get out to the community and do that as well. And one of our language art teachers, she is doing short plays, and I've been down there several times. So if you guys want just some fun things to do, come during wind time and watch short plays. They have these really short plays. They make their own props, and they really, really have a good time. And you really see the creative side of the kiddos during this time. So this is some of the, I think that might be the last slide. These are some of the changes, a couple of changes that we have done in the last couple of years, mostly this year though, with doing some of the enrichment during that wind time. So any questions?
So if they have a win and they need help with reading and math, do they have the option to do any of these other things?
No, they would not. They have to do the interventions.
Gotcha.
Which it breaks my heart, but but yes. Yes.
Is there coding for boys as well?
Yes, there is the coding for both boys and girls are in the one coding in the library.
Okay. And then my other question is you talked about the 6th grade and the 8th grade art, so I didn't understand exactly. So is it a staffing problem, or what's the issue why the 6th graders aren't able to continue in that again?
Because we can only have about 20 to 25 students, and there's about 60 or 70 that would love to do it.
Okay.
So that's what we have about 20 or 25 in there right now, and so we'll take additional then with the 8th graders in there. Yeah, the room is not large enough. No. But no, it's just there's an interest, and we didn't know how much interest there would be for that. But 6th graders have a huge interest in it.
Any other questions from the board for Mrs. Ellis?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
All right, next is our discussion with Envision, our presentation. Let's see if it turns.
We'll see if it's just an update or a discussion. First, just want to introduce myself. I'm Laura Peterson. I'm an educational planner with Envision. Envision's an Iowa-based architecture and design firm. We have about 70 staff between Des Moines and Waterloo, and I co-lead our K-12 market. I've been there about 13 years, and also I am an Indianola resident. I've lived here about 4 years. My husband's family's from the area, and I have a son at Irving and a daughter at Indianola Preschool that will be in kindergarten next year. So I'm here to update you on 2 projects that Envision's currently doing with the district. We were hired about a year ago. At the time, we thought we'd be maybe doing a small bond referendum to do the auxiliary building and some work at the high school. And at the time, we talked about doing a master plan for the high school to really have a vision for where you were going before we decided what that small project might be. Kind of through the process in the last year, those 2 projects have split apart and are 2 separate projects. So I'm going to update you on those 2 projects. The first one is the auxiliary services building, and I have to apologize. I'm standing in for Carrie Wag. She's our project manager that's in the kind of thick of the details, and she's sick today. So hopefully I get all the details right on the project. So this project will be going out for design development at the end of this week. So we're about 2/3 the way through the project. The project will come back to the board for kind of sign off at the end of January. It will go out to bid then beginning of February with bid late February or early March. So that's the kind of timetable that the project is on. For those of you that don't know, it's a new building to consolidate transportation, facilities, technology, and food service. It's about 21,000 square feet, and it will give you the ability to take your North 14th Street building offline and then also replace the functions that are in the current auxiliary building by the high school. The site is south of the middle school. There's been a lot of discussion about site, but this is where we've landed for a site. You can see it's located on the north side of the stadium parking lot. To the south, what you're seeing, that's bus parking. There'll be bus parking for 40 buses. You currently have room for 34 buses. We've worked a lot with Ron and Bernie on this layout. Those will be fenced in. The building entry will then be on the north. You can see kind of visitor and staff parking on the north. So working to efficiently use some of your existing stadium parking. During stadium events, you'll still be able to exit the parking lot in two ways. One will still be on the south, and then the other will be kind of north around the building, which will allow cars to kind of queue up and go out onto onto 15th.
North of the building, the black.
Right, kind of where you see that gray parking, there's an entry point there. So the center point, that will be the bus entry. If you can see the existing drive, the existing north drive will be the bus entry point.
And those parking spaces around the building, those will be accessible to the public during like events?
Yes, they would be. The only thing that's fenced and enclosed is the actual bus parking.
Okay, thanks.
If you want to go to the floor plan. Generally, this building is organized to bring all of these departments together, find an efficient way to get each of them the right workflow, some room for growth, and find what the right adjacencies are. So generally, the south half or the lower half of the building is high bay space, generally for storage and kind of bus needs, and the north is office space. I'll start on the left. You can see kind of the vestibule entry on the upper left. That's really the public entry. The only one of these departments that really has a lot of public interface is food service, so they're kind of in that green right at the front. They take money for the district right now if anyone comes in with cash, and they really see the most visitors. So they're located there. IT is located on the left-hand side, so this really gives IT the opportunity to bring all of their staff together. They're kind of spread out all throughout the district without any place to really touch base and work together as a department. They've also seen the most growth as far as the amount of staff that they've had. So they're located along the left-hand side of the building with some storage there as well. In the middle, you can see facilities. So on the upper part is a work area for all the facility staff. Not a lot of space dedicated for them because this is really a touchdown spot for them to be able to come to a computer, access drawings they need, and then get out to the buildings and be doing the work that they need to be doing. And then the facilities director is located kind of right below them for direct supervision. Then really the whole east half of the building is for transportation. So you can see there's another vestibule kind of in the center. That's where bus drivers will come in. They'll come in, check in, have kind of lounge space for all of them to be able to come in, do meetings before buses go out. And then to the south then is the maintenance bays. You will have 3 maintenance bays. You currently have 2. And then also then a wash bay on the east side. That driver's lounge then during the day will double as break room space and meeting room space for the rest of the building because it's really only needed by transportation early in the morning and in the afternoon. That's the 60-second spiel on how the building works. But if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer or give you more information about the general building plan.
And those 3 on the right side, that's the bus drive-through, right? They can come all the way in and
Just
out.
one.
So there'll be one that's a drive-through. You can see the door that's on the north all the way through, and then the other 2 are still just pull-in.
Or just maintenance.
Maintenance, yeah.
Is there cold storage there too? I can't remember.
Yep, so if you see in the kind of lime green on the bottom, there is cold storage freezer space, so we'll have a new freezer there. There is discussion if long-term the high school project goes that maybe we would move food service to any addition there, and then that gives us kind of future growth space within the floor plate. But know that project's far enough out that it makes sense to move for food service at this time.
Is that a walk-in freezer?
It is a walk-in and a drive-in freezer,
Oh.
so you'll be able to forklift in instead of step in like the existing one.
Okay.
And also we'll have vertical storage so you can actually stack things. I don't know if you've been in the existing one.
How many parking spaces are we losing on the exterior of the building for the parking lot that's is currently there?
It's roughly a third of the lot that's impacted, is what we talked about in a meeting today. That's something we talked about at length for this project. Of course, the time that we get vehicles out there, the highest traffic time would be a Friday night football game. Most of the time, that's a really underutilized parking lot. I don't know if you have the number of spaces. I know it was roughly a third.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number of spaces, but I do know that we're providing about 42 replacement spots on top of the bus parking. But I also know that the city will have a lot of interest in that and make sure that we've met the kind of required counts that you need for all of your events going around.
Hey, Art, did the space that we talked about at the facilities meeting, is that changed on this or no?
Which space? Remind me, Tim.
We were talking about there was a whole lot of space for the parking on that
Oh,
side.
yes, actually.
This has been adjusted.
Yes, this has been shrunk down.
That's what I thought.
One iteration had much more parking
Yep.
north of the building, and
This
we
has had it
were,
sliced down.
yeah.
Now, my concern is the drive-through bay, is that, all that's good for buses getting out that other side, the radius, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, if you go back to the site plan, I'm not sure if they're shown on here, but you can kind of see the drive-through bay, how it aligns then on the north for kind of wide turn and access, and then to the south.
Okay.
That was factored in the site planning. And the parking around the building here, you would have some staff parking when drivers come and park, get ready to drive. There also would be some parking available just out in the parking lot, would not be a long walk to the building either. So as Tim was saying, we did shrink that down. At one time, they were showing 60 or more spots there, and we're pretty conscious of not taking more green space than we need to. So.
During the games this fall and stuff, I noticed that lot's not all the way full. Even
It's not,
during
I was
the
at a lot of
games.
football games, I parked over there
Yeah.
and it was never full.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Never
never
full.
full, and then most of the people park in front of the middle school.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
that's never full either.
No.
There's plenty of parking for
Yeah.
football.
there's plenty of parking for the football game, for sure.
Ray, if you want to go to the slide after the plan. There is also kind of mezzanine storage. We're trying to capture some of that volume that we need to build for the storage and bus maintenance. So we'll have mezzanine storage kind of over the IT space and also mechanical space then on the east-hand side. So trying to capture space that makes sense.
Originally, we talked about kind of having a second level throughout the whole building, but as we tried to shrink this down a little bit, considering budget and how things are going with building right now, at this point, we're thinking we probably won't put mezzanine or storage above the office space on the south, correct?
I think we're considering that we may bid it as an alternate so you can understand the price and understand. We know that can be cheap space to capture, but just with the bidding environment right now, I want to give you some options. So I think the plan is to bid it as an alternate.
The current space up there, is that climate controlled then? Would it be?
I believe it is climate controlled. I know that those bays below are climate controlled, but I can get you an answer for sure on the storage space. Then if you want to scroll down one more. Generally the exterior of the building, it's a precast building, keeping it utilitarian, not fussy, but that it will still look nice on that site and look like it fits in on that campus that we have. We've looked a lot at daylighting strategies, getting light into a lot of these kind of bus maintenance spaces. We know it can really help. So you can see light in the different overhead doors, and also have done daylighting strategies to make sure we're getting light into all the office spaces. And then the next slide, I think it's just some quick kind of 3D views that you can see. We do know that procurement right now for precast could be possibly 10 months out, but we've also looked at pre-engineered metal buildings and they're the same, if not worse. You're not on a tight timeline to try to get into the building. Nothing's pushing you out. So we've talked about that and are staying with precast right now because we don't see an advantage to go away from it, and we know it'll give you a much longer lifespan for the building. Any other questions on the auxiliary services building? Okay, move on to the high school. So like I said, last spring we really dug in and started on a master plan. What we were looking to create was really a vision for the high school. So no matter how big of a project you decided you wanted to kind of bite off, that we knew kind of where you were going. We know that there's been a lot of small projects and additions done at the high school, and kind of the feeling that a lot of that had been done without that kind of framework or vision for decision making. So when we look at master planning, we really look at 3 questions. First, we want to understand just where are you at as a district, where is the high school at? Then what's the vision of who do we want to be as a community? How do we want to deliver education? And then we'll look at strategies of how do we get there. So we've really focused on the first 2 and have also started to test kind of how do we get there. That process really started last spring. We've done a lot of different things. Today you'll see just a very small snippet of it, and I can provide the full kind of packets for new board members that weren't at any of last spring's meetings. But we've done student workshops. We have a student survey that we sent out to all the students. We've done a lot of benchmarking data to just understand the high school compared to peer facilities. We did department interviews with each of the departments. We have an educational leadership team of about 12 teachers that we've met with to kind of test the ideas. We've done a staff survey, kind of understood your peer institutions, and also done some financial feasibility, looking at your capacity versus potential projects. So we brought this information back to the board last April, and at that time, if you want to go to the next slide, Ray, we really suggested moving forward with a community task force process, and the board agreed at that time, and we've been moving forward that way. So we started meeting with a task force. We've met in August and October, so we've met twice. There's about 12 people on that task force, and we just are adding a few right now. And really what they've been doing is looking at the data, understanding the staff input, understanding student input, and really this spring we'll also be reaching out to the community to really help us gauge community. The ultimate goal is that they'll bring a recommendation back to the school board. This spring we will be working with you kind of in work sessions to make sure you're updated along the way. But what we heard is that this should be a community-driven process, not a school board-driven process, and so that's really kind of the path we've been going down. The goal for them is to kind of provide a long-term vision, provide some guidance on when is the right time to maybe take some of this on, and then also kind of what's that first phase, how much should we bite off. So I said we looked at a lot of data. I've just provided kind of 2 slides from that. Just first understanding what does our community growth look like. We're predicted that kind of 0.4 to 2.4%, but we know that we're always kind of predicted to hit that big spike, and it seems that it's been just pretty slow and steady, if not pretty steady. So having a lot of discussions about how much growth should we really plan for. Did some quick benchmarking data, understanding district-wide where we're at versus regional averages. So you can see the 4 elementary schools on the left. That gray bar represents standard square foot per student that we see regionally. So you can see K5, usually we're about 150 to 160, 6-8, 190 to 200, and 9-12, 200 to 225. Elementary schools generally are kind of right above that line. You can see Irving's a little bit below. A lot of that has to do with kind of small gym, small cafeteria, just an older building with some of those smaller community spaces really driving that down, not really classroom count. So elementary school, if you look at it holistically, kind of right over that benchmark. So it tells us we're probably about full, but not busting at the seams there. Middle school, 212, it's a little bit above. Generally kind of also at capacity there, but some of the things like the Blake Field House are really driving that kind of square footage up. And then you can see the high school is kind of falling right below that 200 to 225. So generally thinking we're kind of at capacity at a district, not a lot of room for growth, but definitely not too tight right now with the numbers that we have. Next slide. So we did a lot of interviews. I won't go through all of those. We've done a lot of surveys, and we have great kind of pullouts from that. And through all of our discovery process, we really came down to 10 drivers that what we heard and what we should look at moving forward. The first 2, really we heard that teacher and student connections are strong. Through all of our interviews, we heard a lot of great feedback about that. And generally that good outcomes are being achieved. And I'll tell you, in districts where that's not the case, we hear all about it. And that wasn't the case kind of in our interviews here. But then the next 8 were really things that the building needed to make sense. So the first was that wayfinding is really difficult and meaningful connections between spaces don't exist. The building was described as Frankenstein-y, and I think that's probably the best way, the best description I've seen of it. We know that access to daylight is scarce. I think about 40% of your classrooms don't have any daylight in it, and we know daylight can have a pretty big impact on math and test and reading test scores. We know that the finishes are generally near the end of their lifespan. Facilities has done a good job of updating those kind of as it's come around, but the building feels tired when you walk into a lot of pieces of it. Generally, the building appearance doesn't match the amount of pride that the students and staff and community have in the building and what's going on in it. You walk into a lot of other districts, this is what we heard, and it's that, wow, I know where I'm at. And that moment doesn't really exist at the high school. A lack of clarity in building entry, and really we heard from the students and the staff the most is that there's no heart to the space. There's no space for students and staff to come together and really gather. No space for students outside of the classrooms, and that the vertical transitions in the building are really hard to navigate. You got a lot of ramps and half levels and steps of 4 stairs and go through this classroom to get to the elevator, those kind of moments. If you want to go to the next one. So we kind of have reviewed all this with the task force. We also asked them some questions, generally kind of where are they at on these spectrums. They said that they feel like community growth in the next 10 years is going to remain on that slow and steady. That we should have a vision for the future and growth, but we should build kind of for a responsible number right now. We asked, do our facilities reflect our community values and beliefs about how we want to educate our children, and generally kind of in that neutral to agree. We asked specifically about the high school though, and kind of falling closer to that neutral, that it's doing an okay job of supporting education. We asked about community's level of trust in the school district, because that comes up a lot when we have kind of community discussions about facilities, and felt kind of in that neutral to agree in the level of trust. Generally, people felt that our community is happy with the quality of education provided to our children. And then we asked how bold should our vision be, with status quo on one end and kind of bleeding edge on the other. And the task force generally pushed towards having a bold vision of what our future should be. We also asked them to prioritize kind of these 6 factors that we look at when planning buildings and educational facilities. They said the number one thing that a master plan should include is educational adequacy, which is how does it support 21st century learning. Next, were really safety and security and how the building functions. Next is site, which we know in high school is a lot about parking. How do I get kids in? How do I get kids out? How do we not have accidents? And then kind of last, community and location and value. But we talked a lot about these as a task force. They said, you shouldn't bring us anything that doesn't meet the top 4. Every solution that you bring to the table needs to meet those top 4 in a really excellent way. So it really does come down to kind of community and location and value as we look at options moving forward. So what we've looked at is 3 strategies. These aren't designs, they're not finalized, they're 3 different ways that we could approach kind of a vision for the high school moving forward. One is really kind of fix what we have, renovate a lot of what we have, and add on where we need. So this will look at maybe additions where we need extra square footage, and generally kind of a complete renovation and gut on the, I'll call it the kind of academic level that faces the highway, the main level. The second strategy said, there's a lot of good things in the high school. We've done a lot of work in auditorium, generally the gym spaces, performing arts, CTE. We heard a lot of great things about those spaces. So can we keep those spaces and then have a plan that we could add academic space on while we can keep school in session? So is there a strategy that we can add on while keeping kids in classrooms? But give us a real chance to kind of rethink and reorganize the building. And C would be a new high school. This has really been used as a benchmark throughout the entire process to understand, are we getting the same things that we would get out of a new high school? So there's been strategies and kind of tests and very high level plans developed for each of these. I'm just going to give kind of numbers. So this kind of A, which we would just consider the renovation and addition option, would get you about 22% new building, 41% renovated, and gives you generally kind of a building that's about 32 years old as we look at it. Your existing building's right about 50 if we kind of average all of the additions together. The second option in the end would get you to about a 68% new building, 3% renovated, and 30% existing, and kind of get that average age down to 14 years old as an average building. And none of these are envisioned to be done all at once. They all have phasing plans of how we would bring this piece online and then this piece and then this piece. And And what the next step for us to really do with the task force is understand what makes sense for how we kind of clump these phases together. And then C, like I said, is the new build. So the task force, this is kind of the themes from our meetings with the task force as well as our meeting with our educational leadership team. In looking at these, we heard over and over that community pride is a real thing here, and that people will generally, they felt, would support a vision that was strong enough and really supported our community. We heard a lot about address the why. We need tours, we need facts, and we need data. And a lot of that was discussion based off of the courthouse building. We heard very loudly that as a community we feel committed to the site that we're on, that we shouldn't look at options to move the high school, that with all the work that's been done in the middle school and that campus, just the general location of the community, that we're committed to that site. We heard a lot about consistency across the district and how they feel like we've done a lot of work at elementary and middle school, but the high school doesn't really match kind of the level of facilities we have, elementary through middle school. And broadly from the task force and educational leadership team, we've heard broad support for thinking big. So really leaning towards that kind of B option where we're going to be doing some major kind of replacement of facilities. So our next steps, like I said, originally we kind of started on a different timeline, but with a lot going on in the district this fall, have kind of slowed down, but we'll be picking up more in January with the potential the task force could come with a recommendation as early as May. So really starting to have a lot of these conversations with the community this winter and spring. We're adding a few members to the task force. We had a few people need to step out for different reasons, so we're bringing them up to speed. Starting in January, we'll be doing some community focus groups and survey work. We'll have another meeting coming up where we start to talk about kind of those lumping together, what could different bond referendums possibly look like, really what are their priorities. We'll be coming back for a board work session to understand what our kind of total financial capacity is and what are those other projects that we want to make sure we're leaving room for long term. And then we'll be doing some more option development as well. There's a lot of other information I could share, and I'll try to send the packet to Art that we can share out to new board members.
Those 6 areas that you mentioned, like what priorities, I guess, I think they were?
Theme, yeah.
Yeah.
Task force themes.
Yeah, were those from the community task force or both teachers and students as well?
Both. We met with the community task force and the educational leadership team, and I would say we heard very similar things from both of those groups, kind of on how bold their vision should be. Yep.
The difference
I can
between
get-
all 3 of those groups?
Yep.
I guess I'd be more interested in hearing from the community on some of that because that's who the voters are, I guess.
Yep. We met with the community members first,
Okay.
and then with the staff on the option development.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
for
Yeah.
all your
Questions
work.
while we have her?
Yes, thank you for that work.
I'll get all that supporting data sent out once I get it. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks a lot. All right. Next is our 2022-2023 year-round education calendar.
Last meeting, we approved the traditional calendar, and so after that approval, we worked the year-round calendar to kind of align in as many places as we could. We're able to do that. I sent a draft to Mr. Morris at Irving, and he shared it with some of his staff members, and we tweaked one professional development day, and then they all kind of said that it looked good, so I'm looking for approval on the calendar.
Just need a motion to approve this calendar.
Motion to approve that year-round calendar for 2022-2023.
Okay, motion made by Ryan to approve. Seconded by Mac. Any further discussion by board members? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the board curriculum committee meeting report. This is your time.
You were so excited earlier.
I know.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I was on the right schedule.
Sorry about that. I should have told you that.
We met last Thursday and went over a few requests. There was 4 requests for changing or adding curriculum for next year. Do you want to go through those in depth? Do you want me to go through them a little bit, or how do you want to do it? I don't know what your norm is.
Do you want to explain any of them, or do you feel like you need
Well,
to?
in the minutes, it explains kind of a summary of each of those 4 courses and the rationale for why those were being requested by staff. And then the packets were attached within that if there were more specific information you wanted. In each application that is there, it goes through and just talks about the coding for the course handbook that Jeff Siebersma will bring at a later date. But because these are major changes, the rationale is provided there, and a little bit of the history, for example, with AP Research. You had approved last year the AP seminar, and this is the second level to that to complete that piece. The Ag Leadership 2 was a request. Also, with the rationale for that to provide more diverse options for kids right away that supports those interests. Also provides a little bit more of a work balance for that teacher and being able to work on those projects during the school day.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Those first 2, then the agricultural leadership and the hospitality industry, those 2 came out of those focus groups then?
Right, so those are career and tech education strands that we have, which we have 4, and each one of those has a required advisory.
Yeah, advisory.
And so their advisory groups meet, and those programs are each on a 5-year cycle to be fully reviewed and approved.
Okay.
And so when they meet they meet yearly, multiple times, and we're trying to increase that frequency. And so, for example, the Ag Leadership 2 course, my understanding through Jessica is that they want to increase the diversity of offerings with that. And so this is one of those options being put forth by that instructor as she has learned what do we currently offer and how can we best serve the kids. And you don't have to be a member of FFA to take those courses, but that does provide some balance.
So we currently have instructors that are all certified to teach all of these, or do we need to do some anyone needs specialists or certification?
No, and in their applications, that's one of the questions that we ask.
Yeah.
And then that also goes through, and then I take it to Mimi once I'm looking at that with the principals and the curriculum side to say, okay, is there significant hiring factors, these really specialized certifications that are needed, but we are good.
That's what I thought when I was.
So the capstone, so if they take the capstone, because my grandkids have gone to college, I have to take a capstone when they get there. So if they take this, then when they go to college, if they pass this, or is it credit through AA, or how will that?
So what this allows them to do then is they then also have to take the AP tests. And if they score, for most of these, like 3 or higher.
3 or higher, yeah.
Through that, then they can receive this designation, which is kind of that elite status to put on scholarship applications and things like that, yeah. And some of the research behind that too is once students go through that process, that they do score higher on their AP tests. Great.
Okay.
Both of you guys did a great job explaining that to me last week, so I appreciate that for my first committee meeting. And I didn't have any issues with the way that they explained it.
So you want a motion for this to go ahead?
We can finish our minutes first,
Yeah.
probably too, if you want to talk about the FAST scores, and we've got an action item coming up. And there's no problem, Mr. Strawn, with putting the 4 in one motion, is there?
No, I noticed that they put that in there separately in case there is if you did have concerns about one, you could separate it out.
I just thought it was separate, that's why I didn't know.
Yeah, it is. I think if you're okay with all 4, we could do it as one motion, but let's, I don't know if you want to talk about the FAST scores prior to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it here. We did go through K through 3 FAST scores on Thursday as well. I was a little bit concerned first looking at the documents just based on the tip. Obviously with the kids not in school, it's understandable. I do think that all of the grades are coming back into that more normal range where we want to see them. Obviously we want to get them to a little bit higher than where they are now, but my understanding, again, based on the way that it was explained, which was very helpful, was that we're headed in the right direction now that we're back in the classroom regularly.
That is a good comparison. The reports are provided, they compare, to the AEA and to the state, and we're typically above both those averages. And I think that Heartland AEA measure is a good one. There are a lot of excellent school districts in Heartland AEA, so that's kind of a benchmark we traditionally look at.
Anything else from the curriculum committee?
Hold on,
Go
one
ahead.
second. What did you just say? There's only so many schools that belong to AEA?
For Heartland.
Well, there are different AEAs. We're compared to the Heartland AEA group, Central Iowa, but I said, my comment was that's a good benchmark for us because there are a lot of very good school districts within our AEA, a lot of high achieving districts, so if we're exceeding that average, that's a pretty good marker for
Every
us.
school has a form of AEA, right?
There are 9 AEAs throughout the state.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. At first,
Or just AEA 11.
The way
AEA 8.
I had thought I had heard it was that, like, of the schools in the AEA Heartland, there are good schools, but every school is in an AEA program.
Every school's in an AEA, and I don't mean to say that.
No, I was
I don't want to sound
thinking-
elitist. I just know there are a lot of high achieving districts in Heartland AEA. That's what I meant to say.
No.
If you scroll down to that report with the data, I listed in there for you all of the districts that are included in the Heartland.
In the Heartland one, okay.
Yeah.
That's where I was a bit confused with.
The only one that was down or lower was kindergarten for fall. Do you have any knowledge as why, or since those would all be new students coming in for the first time, like what would be different?
No, I don't know. That was just,
Okay.
again, in comparison to the whole state
Yeah,
and our AEA area.
yeah.
So, but typically when you look at historically at our kindergarten data, they make tremendous growth to winter and then the last spring one. So winter will be coming up here in January, and we'll have a better measurement as to where our kindergarten kids are
Cool.
too, so.
I should know this because I've sat through plenty of conferences on FAST, but FAST, what is it? Monitors it fluency or?
There are different tests per grade level, K through 8, but the pieces that it would be measuring is, yes, it will look at some of that automaticity for the students, but you can even get down at the very lower levels where they're looking at letter recognition. It's trying to give us a measurement as to, are these kids on track to meeting where we need them to be by the end of the school year? And if they're not, then again, interventions are designed for them, and we progress monitor them weekly to see if they're making growth. And that's where what's called the Fast Bridge system, and then also student success helps the teachers to manage that.
So is there anything if like a student is way above grade levels, are they getting anything extra to keep them on track?
Well, through our new curriculum, through the common knowledge or the core knowledge language arts curriculum, there are extensions that teachers can do within those lessons to strengthen for those kids, whether that's more in-depth questioning, whether that's having them increase the type of writing that they're doing. There's a list of different things that can be done to not only make sure they're solid with their skills, but to, again, make sure that rigor is there for them. The part we're really cautious about this year is we don't want to too quickly say, yep, you're a great reader, and move you forward, when we really have it checked to make sure that every single skill is really solid for them. Because then we can, hit that later on where they do start to struggle, and we're like, okay, now you have a gap. So that's the part we're really trying to circle back to, because our reading has been a concern for over a decade. Go back and look at we've got to change something, we've got to be very intensive, and that's, I think the teachers last board meeting had said, when I asked for them to be committed, I asked them to be cohesive, and I asked them to be aggressive. And I said, we have got to hit this, and we're going to make a change. So those are the pieces that we're all looking at. And here in January, we'll have another touch-base training with our teachers on the writing component. And that's a strong area for kids who excel. If they can start, communicating through their writing, and Donna and I have talked about this quite a bit too. It's a wonderful way to take from their content knowledge and what they're reading and then express themselves in writing, strengthens it even more.
And enrich a lot with just the writing portion of it, so.
In years you were just talking about referring to, where did we see that? Like what grade level does that start to happen in where we would see it? Maybe?
It's just historically, we are not reaching that to where where we try to gauge that 80% of our kids are so solid with their reading.
Okay.
We're always in that band to where we have too many kids that need intervention, and then our resources can't support that.
Okay.
And so again, by looking at that new type of curriculum and that approach of having a cohesive program.
The one from last board meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
that CKLA,
Yeah.
we're not trying to pick from here and here and here to fill those holes.
Okay.
But as you can see, as Art mentioned, we're above where the state is for their scores, and we're above where the Heartland ADA is. So it's not just an Indianola factor. I think you can look across the nation.
Yeah.
But all of us want to do really, really well and excel. And so we just really want to stay very focused on that we're going to make a difference. It won't happen overnight, but it's going to happen.
Well, and it'll take a year. It's a brand new program, so you're going to have to find out what the strengths and weaknesses of that program are, and then if there are some, weak areas, then they'll have to address them and figure out what that is.
The estimates now are it will take 3 to 5 years to fully address any type of learning loss that occurred because of the school closures and the shifting that had occurred for students and how they were learning. So we'll be revisiting those, what we call some kind of those gap analysis plans that the teachers did that spring when we had the school closure, to say what would be some of the things that the kids would be missing out at that time, so they can continue scaffolding those in. So that's on par to bring that back around in January, just to touch base and say, okay, where are we at with those two?
I wrote down under great quotes, but it will happen. And then,
This is
Art's
really
doing the minutes, so I hope
I think this program.
Mrs. Duran, guaranteed.
That's right. That's good. I'm glad you said that. That's good. Any other questions? Ben, did you have more? I'm sorry.
No.
That's good. All right. So then, going back to that, the curriculum change approvals that would require a vote, and we do have them listed out 4 times in the packet, but I wrote them down. It's agricultural leadership 2, hospitality industry, AP research, journalism, and digital media are the 4 classes that would need to be voted on to change those curriculums.
Are we doing them all in one?
Yeah, that's about it. If you guys are okay with it. If not, we can leave them separate.
Can I make the motion of the 4 classes that you just mentioned?
Sue made the motion to approve those 4
To approve
classes.
them, yes.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board on these? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the Board Facilities Committee meeting.
Yep. I did the minutes there, and actually, John would typically do those, so these might be a little bit bare bones, because I was kind of going by memory. But we had some people there. If Tim or Sue want to flesh that out or go through what we talked about, feel free. Maybe you took some notes or something, or...
I did not bring them with me. The big issue that I walked away with was the parking lot, which was already addressed. That was one of the biggest
We
things.
talked a lot about the plans with Envision,
Okay.
and I don't.
We also, we talked about, and Michael Clean from Shive Hattery's here, we talked about those options for middle school renovation.
That's right.
We did want to get in
That's
front of you
right.
too.
Do we have that? Is that in there?
I believe
It is.
they're in
It should be in
here,
there.
what you,
It's page 61 and 62.
Yeah, so we talked about the middle school's got some rooms that are not being maybe utilized as best as they could. We have a math interventionist in a very, very large room. We've got some other people that could use some office space. And so we really looked at kind of what our different options are for that. And Ray, there should be
probably scroll down to the pictures, right?
yeah, further down, keep going.
Those were...
Yeah, so we kind of looked at where can we do some remodeling versus adding on or creating new classrooms. And so we talked about, like I said, the math interventionist room, can we turn that into 2 different rooms versus just one.
Is this out for the library?
Yes.
Yep. And so,
That blue space is that's the old computer lab in the south east corner of the library. Currently, as Sue said, that's one math intervention teacher's room, huge room. So space there that could be easily divided. That shows 2 small classrooms becoming that. And then the other area along the south side of the library is out in the library proper, but also probably kind of underutilized space.
Well, that's part of the library, that's what's different. Okay,
Yeah.
I remember that.
So one of my goals would be to take the licensed mental health counselor out of the middle school office. So the kids don't have to come through the office and get, because I think that's a barrier to kids accessing our mental health service. So this would be like a brainstorming spot of where could we find a more quiet and kind of secluded space would be off of the library or something like that versus right the nurse's office, counselor's office, and everything else. So, but other teachers that need support as well, and different classrooms as well.
Go down to that next one, right?
That's the space we were talking about, was right there.
Yeah, and that's the current industrial tech room at the middle school. We teach Gateway to Technology, which is the middle school Project Lead the Way curriculum. And that back room shaded blue was storage. You know, when COVID hit, we had to kind of remove all our soft furniture was one of the steps we were taking. So for a while, there was furniture back in there. And back when we did some different industrial tech modules, there were some things stored back there. Right now, it's really just an empty space. And then north of that room, toward the top of the picture there is just a little office space. So if you look at the dotted lines there, that's existing unused storage, basically. And to the left of it, the rest of that blue is actually out in that large classroom. And I think that dark line captures, there's a window there, isn't there, Michael? Is that the space I'm looking at? So that is, then you see too, the note, due to the size of the CTE exploratory, there'd be a second means of egress required. So that'd be an added door there, Michael, is that what that is?
Correct.
Okay. So this would be, you know, I think this would be, both of these projects would be relatively cost-effective remodels, and I think we could capture a lot of inefficiently used space right now. And space is an issue in the middle school. There was one other one, I don't know if it made, I don't think the picture made the packet. There was another idea out there about building on east of the current end of the building in kind of the specials wing, building out additional classroom space for maybe special ed programming. And tell me if this is wrong, but I think the committee kind of said, you know, we maybe don't want to incur a large cost for one program right now, and we probably need to look at overall programming for the building.
I think we said too, if we're gonna go out that way, why just do one?
Right.
Classroom two, I think is what we had talked about, like, it would be a bit ridiculous just to go out and bill for one classroom if down the road, are we able to do something much more functional with that space?
Can I ask a question? I'm going to. If you scroll up again, so is that top of that space there, is that an exterior of the building?
Yes, so that is the loading dock for the middle school kitchen and other ancillary spaces.
I'm looking right at the top here, top of that space.
Oh,
right. Because I'm trying to figure out if another door can be added on that other side, and you basically could create, but I don't know how, what's the width on that space there? To the left of the concrete masonry wall?
To the left, you're suggesting between those two north windows, putting a door in there?
Yes.
That would also be another possibility.
Okay. Because, and I guess what I'm asking is for the counseling type suites that you're talking about, does that space work for that? Because you're not going to change the masonry wall, right? Is that a supporting wall?
Correct, that is, that north wall is an exterior wall.
And what's the dimensions, rough dimensions of that blue space to the left of the concrete masonry wall?
It is approximately 5 to 6 feet, and that blue area that we're highlighting is just identifying that when the contractor's in there, they're gonna be most likely touching the floor, touching the ceilings, and so there's costs associated with that space.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it's really that black line is that delineating between the special education classroom to the east and the exploratory to the west.
Got it, okay, all right.
So this is what Tim does for a living, apparently.
Well,
We were in facilities, he started asking all these questions, and I'm like, oh.
I've got shops, and so
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing.
So is this something that, I assume the construction could be done over the summer break, so it does not disrupt learning?
Yep, that's the hope. And also, we can adjust our existing capital projects funds. That's another reason to try to, bite off the remodel and not do the new building, just the budget impact. This has been something that has been on the burner, has been a need, has been a request for probably at least a couple of years. And just this year, we got Michael and Shive Hattery in to talk with Bernie and with the middle school folks. So, but it would be a summer project.
So, Art, is this something you continue to come with us with more ideas? Or what's
Yeah, we will, and I think once we settle, once we settle on what we would recommend and get some really solid budget numbers, we would, we'd come back with some specs and design and, be ready to bid it. We're not quite there yet, but I think our facilities committee conversation, I feel like kind of moved it forward.
Yeah, okay.
And Michael has put together some numbers. I don't think we have many, just estimated budget type numbers too.
It's an opinion of probable cost, and I think that's on the second to last page.
Okay, we did get that in here.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, with today, if I may interrupt, if you look at that schedule that's listed, there's a green bar through there identifying today. We would move into construction documents, and then we would most likely change per the school district's attorney. We would change contracts from a simple form to an AIA agreement to create those construction documents. And then we would most likely have a tentative schedule listed there of how we could still have this project bid before spring break, have contracts, and then have the contractor starting this summer.
So that shows construction starting in March. Is that probable, or do you think that it would be out into June?
It would, the contractor would gain access the day after school, but at least the contracts can get signed. The contractors can start doing product submittals, ordering the products, making sure that, while kids are still in school, that delivery time can start be ordered and try to get the products here on time.
What's the total square footage on that redesign area, Mike?
So basically, we're taking the CT exploratory of 1,697 square feet. I have a small plan, plus the special education room of 768. So we're looking at roughly, 2,200 square feet for just the special education for that modification to the south. And then to the north, you're looking at 800. Another 1,600 square feet for the media center.
Where's that at? Is that the? Oh, okay, I got it, okay. So you got the 2 classrooms there. Is the tan one is not included?
No, the tan one would be part of that.
It's part of that too, okay, all right. I was trying to get an idea of what the amount is per square foot.
Per square foot?
Yeah, what's the average per square foot that you guys are looking at?
I would get back to you on that. This one, we kind of brought it down a little bit closer, but.
You told me, Art, you said you guys were kind of.
Well, we're hearing numbers like $230, $250 a square foot.
Yeah, and so if you look at the second to last page, there's an actual opinion of probable cost.
Yeah.
And so we kind of broke that down into 2 different areas. showing the subtotal, and then you also have currently a 20% design contingency. We also put in a 5% material escalation contingency. So if you remember a year ago, we were bidding out the auditorium project, and steel jumped twice in the month of January. There were a lot of materials that had multiple jumps between January and March. So we put a escalation contingency of 5% on there. Then you also have the insurance and bonds, buildings permits, and then the general contractor fees, so that approximately on bid day, we would anticipate the bid to be $388,000.
Any other questions from board members on anything?
I guess maybe too, just general, does what we're talking about make sense, seem reasonable? Anybody wanna?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to repurpose existing space to our needs, I think. Especially if it's been something you guys have been discussing.
There are no empty rooms in the middle school,
I don't think so. In fact, I know we have, and one reason the special ed department got brought up was we have special ed teachers sharing rooms, which, it is fine. It's not atypical in education, but in the district, it doesn't happen in every building. So I don't believe we have any open classrooms. We have a conference room that gets used throughout the day, kind of in the office area. Mrs. Duran was there a lot of years. I see her shaking her head.
There's not. In the computer lab, we were a one-to-one digital learning environment at that time when we had that lab.
Yeah.
So that's why that has been repurposed at this point. Okay. And that wing off the south side, that was kind of that left space for growth as part of those future plannings, if we weren't at that point of adding on to the wings of the other rooms of the building. So, and we didn't have mental health counselors when that was redesigned either, so.
Which side are you referring to?
On the south wing where the industrial technology classes.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why that health classroom got flipped over by the field house at the end of that common space.
Right.
Because that wasn't into the design and we needed one. And so they chose that to be next to
All the way down
PE
there.
instead of going off of that back wing,
Okay.
so.
How often do the two large rooms north of the field house, are they used daily?
That classroom is, that's where Penny Airy is, who teaches health.
Are you talking about the multi-purpose room?
Yeah.
Quite a bit. They will bring classes in there for projects, or if they just need to spread out, have a little more space. If they're doing I've seen history classes in there where they have primary source documents on the wall. They're doing kind of a gallery walk around there where they have more room to spread out that they don't have in the regular classroom. I don't know what other purposes.
I use it for training places because I don't have a large area to bring people together. So
That's where the health class meets, is it?
No, health class meets down the hall by the ICYF office.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's just one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, anything else in your mind while Michael's here, because he knows our facilities well? Appreciate you hanging in there, Michael. Thank you.
All right, next is the bus bids, 2022, 2023 bus bids.
Yep, you can see there we received 2 bids. We have worked with Hoagland Bus a number of times before. They did have the low bid. It was pretty significantly lower, $37,000 lower than the other bid we received. And kudos to Mr. Swartz too. He continues to pursue these grants. There was a huge Volkswagen emissions settlement, you might remember, billions of dollars, and one of those uses is to reduce emissions, and he's done a very nice job. This is, I think, maybe the 3rd time we've gotten a grant similar to that, and almost a free bus in effect. So kudos to him for pursuing that. But
Just to let the new board members know, we kind of rotate buses every.
Yeah, we do.
They're on a
We buy 2 or 3 buses a year. We keep our fleet 15 years or newer. And I think you said earlier, I think we have 34 buses. So I guess actually we're on about almost a 12-year cycle, but, depending on, we buy our buses out of PEPAL fund, Physical Plant and Equipment Levy, and depending on the demands on that fund and what kind of shape the fleet is in, there will be years we buy two. I think there might have been 1 year where we didn't purchase buses when the PEPAL fund was really tight. But I shared out with you too our bus inspection data recently. Our transportation department does a great job of maintaining our buses. Part of that is the board commits to keeping our fleet newer, but our mechanics and our drivers, they do their pre-trip, post-trip inspections, they catch things. There's a lot of pride in that department, and so I just feel really good about the path we're on, both with how we're taking care of buses and how we're replacing them.
This would be a motion needed to approve these buses. Purchase.
I'll make a motion, purchase the 3 buses for a total cost of $375,000.
Motion made by Tim,
I'll second.
seconded by Sue. Any further discussion by the board?
These all come with the seatbelts for you.
They do, yep, they do. And we were one of 2 districts in the state to retrofit our buses when that came in, before we had to. But now all new buses purchased have to have seatbelts.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the monthly financials.
I'm also taking I'm having some appreciation for Jonna doing the minutes as she talks here. So, the monthly financials for October are in here, and I know that Jonna will typically talk through it. If you're taking a quick look at things, I always look at the general fund ending balance year to year, just to see that it kind of matches up. Now, as Jonna keeps reminding you, in recent times, you'll see, oh man, we're up $1.7 million or whatever. This is a lot of federal COVID money flowing through here.
That's right.
So we really kind of are right on track as you look across the different funds. The other thing to look at, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read it up there, but you can look at the percentage of the year, the percentage of the budget that we've spent to this point. So through October 21st, we have 33.33% of the year complete. And what percent of the budget have we spent? My sheet got cut off. I don't know if I can read this up here. 22.26% in the right-hand column. So, obviously, we never want to spend all of our certified budget. We certify our maximum, what we think the tax levy can support, and then we never want to overspend that. So percent spent so far is 22.26% through a third of the year in this October report. John also always puts in a line graph just to kind of show you the cash flow. And I know she's talked to you before about the fact that we'll see spikes in that cash as property taxes come in, in October and end of March, April, usually April. So you do see that line jumping right up there with these October financials, and that's just because of an influx of property tax. I didn't see anything of particular note or concern. I can try to answer questions if you have them.
I have just one. Are there any funds, other than funds that have a certain window of time to be executed, are there any funds that you annually have appropriated that you have to show great execution on in order to get that same amount of money the following year?
There's not really a spend it or lose it, although there are carryover limits sometimes, you can't maybe carry over more than 10%.
Yep.
So not exactly. The funds that would come into play with, it seems like we usually have no problem spending it. We did have quite a bit of carryover because all the limited travel in our TLC funds and our teacher quality funds, our TQC, because we just weren't sending people out for training during COVID. Iowa, a couple of years ago, put in something called the Flexibility Fund, so you can take that carryover and put it into this Flexibility Fund and use it for other purposes, and we've done a little bit of that this year.
Then we just need a motion to approve these.
Motion to approve the October financials,
Okay, motion made by Sue.
2021.
Motion made by Sue to approve the monthly financials for October 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Then finally, the facilities project update.
Yeah, not a lot there. You get some specifics on the auditorium. That's something Shive and Michael have been working with us on that. I know recently you heard the fabric panels are here. I have not been in the auditorium here lately. Have you, Michael? Are they?
I was there 10 minutes before the meeting started.
Okay.
They're about 40% complete.
Okay, great. So that's underway. You heard from Envision. They're working on finalizing plans for bidding too for the auxiliary services building. We had a Zoom meeting with the city today too to talk about the site approval process, zoning, council approval. You know, there's just a tremendous number of details and things to take care of with any building project, and we have to coordinate with the city. And of course, you know, they've got an interim city manager right now, but he was on the call, Charlie Zell was, and they recently went back through their requirements, their code requirements. So there's kind of a lot of new things, but we're going to get great cooperation and help from the city. I feel really good about that after we had that call today. So that's where we're at with that. You heard Laura say that we'll probably have another task force meeting in January on that high school facility to move that conversation forward. We'll have some work happening at Lower Ingalls Wilder over break here. That room is getting ready to go, and those are the rooms, seclusion restraint type rooms, de-escalation rooms that we've talked about before. And then
So the one
go ahead.
that we are repairing will be done over winter break.
Yeah.
And then we decided to put a new one in Wilder.
Well, that's right. That's actually the padded surfaces. That's the new area. There's one large existing room that we're splitting it into two. Yeah, that's what that is.
Okay, yep.
Any other questions for Art? Sorry.
No, and then the last one we just talked about, so.
Any other questions for facilities projects update? Okay. Next is the board calendar.
Like, I haven't been to a committee in like 2 weeks.
It's because we kind of had a gap there.
Yeah, we're gonna start getting cranked back up, so.
16th,
Thursday, Human Resources.
But I'm trying to get organized. I'm telling you.
Well, your problem's becoming our problem.
That's right.
You're unorganized too? Uh-oh.
So.
Talk about not meeting for a while. Dr. Williams feeling very good about being on board policy committee. We're not meeting until January 27th.
And that's technology, and that's technology. Mine's January 25th.
I told you, right, that's a good policy. Or it's a good,
So HR is Thursday, and then finance is next Tuesday. And then that's it before the new year.
And stay tuned on finance next Tuesday. We'll see, where we're at and what's ready for that. If I have to come up with a finance committee meeting, that probably looks a little bit different than if Jonna does. So. Yeah, and we'll reach out to you guys on that.
And then the next agenda is for January 11th.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you have something like this, if there is an intent to have added discussion about this, how does that get, like, does that go to a certain committee to be discussed? Does that get discussed in here?
Yeah, I made a note for myself, and that would be an HR type thing, and my note to myself was to have Mimi review this and kind of parse it out and have some follow-up sent to the board, and that, like, in terms of committee, HR committee would be where that can get talked about.
Okay. That's on Thursday, but do you have 3 board members in that one? Okay. So if any other board member wanted to go, you would just have to, you couldn't participate in the meeting, you just had to be able to, you'd sit and not, and it'd be good to let like Mimi or Annette or Ray, whoever's running it, John, know that you'd be coming, so that way publicly everything's good for open meeting laws.
So that's my next question. With open meeting laws and stuff like that, if you had an idea that you wanted to contribute to that, how does that get navigated?
Probably talk to the board member on the committee,
Okay.
right?
That would be a good suggestion. We will share those minutes at the next meeting.
Sure.
So that'd be an opportunity then.
Aren't all those
Talk about it.
meetings announced anyway ahead of time? So we could.
Well, we would have to post it.
Board action.
Well, we would have to post it as a public meeting, and right now our committee meetings, we don't post. When we have a non-quorum there.
Okay.
So.
If far enough in advance somebody wanted to participate, we would just post it.
We could post it, yeah, we definitely could post it as a meeting, as a special meeting. Yep. So.
Yeah, however, I just needed to understand how that process worked for that.
So our next board meeting is Tuesday, January.
It's January 11th.
Oh, yep, that did not get updated, sorry about that. And that actually, Sue, there were 2 mistakes there, and I know that Steph caught one of them because she changed 2021 to 2022. I missed them both, and she missed the Monday, so I apologize. It is Tuesday.
I think Sue just proved she's a future policy.
I think she has great promise in that area, Ben. Yeah.
I just want you know.
For 2023.
There's no reason we couldn't, and the board too, you could reconfigure your committees more often if you wanted to get Sue on there, say, 3 months or.
All those in favor say aye.
Don't scare Ryan before he gets his first one.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Sue to adjourn. Seconded by Mac. Everyone in favor say aye. Aye. Adjourn.
Everybody realize that Mac has had some play in the